Virtual AI girlfriends, humanoid robots that listen to you, look you in the eye, and learn from you. And now, bringing someone back who has already passed away using artificial intelligence. This is not science fiction. This is happening now in China on a large scale. In one of my recent videos, I talked about how loneliness has become a huge problem in China, about how millions of Chinese live isolated, without family nearby, often without anyone by their side. And if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend you watch it later, because it will help you better understand today's topic. But in this video, I want to show you what China is doing to try to solve this. And look, some solutions are impressive, while others are quite disturbing. Let's start with something that seems kind of absurd, but in practice has already become a billion-dollar market. Imagine having a romantic partner who remembers absolutely everything you say, who replies as soon as you send a message, who is never in a bad mood, never argues with you, never ignores you, and is always available. That sounds too good to be true, right? For many people in China, this is already a reality. Giants like Baidu, Tencent, and ByteDance are literally competing to be your romantic partner. And this is growing very fast. An app called Glow was dubbed the romantic GPT chat by the Chinese media. In less than 4 months after its launch, it attracted nearly 5 million users seeking virtual boyfriends and girlfriends. Yes, real people paying to have a relationship with artificial intelligence. But the most impressive case of all this is Xiao IC. Check this out, it started as a Microsoft initiative and became independent. And nowadays, it has more than 660 million users. To give you an idea of how big this is, it's more than double the entire population of Brazil. And the average time these people spend using this program is 23 months. And what's funny is that this is longer than the relationship of many people out there. And here's a part that's really important to pay attention to. A survey showed that 48% of young Chinese prefer to confide in a chatbot rather than a real person. And the reason is that they don't want to be a burden to anyone. They prefer to talk to a machine than bother a friend. And that says a lot about how this generation is feeling. The AI emotional companionship market in China is expected to grow from $530 million last year to over $8 billion by 2028. That's almost doubling every year. But this is far from being just a Chinese phenomenon. In the United States, there are also a number of apps that do the same thing. And here's a difficult question to answer. Deep down, what is a relationship? If you feel loved, if you have someone who listens to you, who never abandons you, does it really matter if it's a human being? What do you think about that? Humanoid robots. This is something I mentioned in the previous video. I'll leave that video here at the end. But here, I want you to pay attention to something people aren't noticing. In the last video, I talked about Moya, the robot from Droid Up, about the Unitrese G1, which walks in extremely low temperatures. They're impressive robots, no doubt, but there's an important detail about this that no one noticed. China has 310 million people over the age of 60, and there are only about 5.5 million caregivers. This means there are too many elderly people and too few people available to take care of them. And the solution the country is finding for this is not to hire more people. It's actually to build robots. Companion robots are already operating in nursing homes in Beijing. They remember medication schedules, watch the news together with the elderly, call for emergency if something happens. And in Beijing, more than 700 families already have a care robot at home. This is not just a futuristic project. It is becoming a reality. And the robot I showed you before is exactly this next step. It was built to interact with people in hospitals, in social environments. It has facial expressions, eye contact, everything I showed you. But is this really a good thing? There's a side that nobody talks about. A study presented by an organization that deals with this showed that 70% of the usage scenarios of these robots involve serious privacy risks. These robots collect biometric data, record conversations, learn the person's behavior. You gain a companion, but end up giving up your privacy. And it's not just China doing this. Japan, which has one of the highest aging rates in the world, did it first with Paro, a robotic plush toy created for elderly people with dementia that reacts to touch and makes sounds. And it seems to have worked. But the scale that China is planning is unlike anything that has been done before, resurrecting the deceased with AI. Now we're going to talk about the most curious or disturbing thing in this video. Imagine being able to call a loved one who has passed away, see their face on the screen, hear their voice responding to you. In China, this is already a service you can hire for about $700. Companies like Silicon Intelligence and Superbrain offer what they call digital resurrection. You send photos, videos, audios of the person, and they create an avatar that talks, responds, mimics the expressions and mannerisms of someone who has passed away. The executive of Silicon himself did this with his mother, and he talks about it in a way that's hard to know exactly how to react. According to him, it doesn't matter if she is really there or not. When he thinks of her, he can talk to her and hear her voice. But this is where it gets stranger. There are reports of quite curious stories, like that of a man who hired this service not for himself, but to deceive his 93-year-old grandmother, who didn't know that her son had passed. And for a while, this grandmother had video calls with her son, who was not her son. It was an AI, and she never knew it. An app called Lingyu, which roughly translates to something like spiritual encounter, attracted over 10,000 users in less than 2 months after its launch. And the business even has seasonality, you know? Orders spike every year during the Qingming Festival, which is the Chinese equivalent of that time when some families visit the graves of deceased relatives. There's a case that went viral abroad as well, involving a musician named Tino Ball, who digitally brought back his daughter, who had passed away at 22. And the video of him interacting with her avatar went quite viral. Honestly, I don't know what to say about this. Some psychologists are worried about what this might do to the grieving process because grief exists for a reason. It helps you accept the loss and move on. But what if you never really have to let the person go? What happens in the long term? And there's more. What if the company goes bankrupt or shuts down? What if you can no longer afford it? This reminds me a lot of a Black Mule episode. In the United States, a service called Hereafter AI did something very similar. There's even a more famous case, which is Project December. The company tried to do the same thing, but OpenAI ended up cutting off the company's access to their tools out of fear of what it could do to users. But it seems that in China, this kind of thing is a mainstream product. Besides all that I've already shown you, there's an entire industry of apps that has sprung up around loneliness. There are emotional check-in apps that send you notifications to see if you're okay and trigger alerts to the authorities if you go too long without responding. There are AI-guided meditation apps, apps where you create a virtual pet that talks, reacts to touch, learns your way. In fact, a company called Hive-V sold 250,000 AI plush toys in less than 12 months. These are teddy bears and little animals that actually talk to you. Another company called Rawpet raised over $1 million just in January 2025. Most purchases were made by women between 20 and 30 years old. And there's something that has emerged in recent years, especially after the launch of DeepSeek, where people are using chatbots as therapists, doctors, advisors, friends. It's estimated that 1 in 6 adults in the United States does this. And in China, the number is usually similar or higher. The Chinese government realized this could become a problem and stepped in with regulation. In 2024, they launched AI management measures. And here's a part that's too important for us to ignore. All of this works, at least in the short term. People end up feeling less alone. They sleep better. They report having someone to talk to. But here's the problem. There are studies showing that frequent users of these companionship apps report feeling more lonely over time, not less. AI gives you quick relief, but it doesn't teach you how to connect with other people. You become more and more comfortable with the machine and less tolerant of human beings. A real human relationship has many problems. There are difficulties you need to learn to tolerate, and AI doesn't have any of that. It will always tell you what you want to hear. It's very easy to relate to someone like that. It's like a painkiller that takes away the pain for a while, but doesn't treat what's causing that pain. So it seems that if people continue like this, the future will be quite sinister. China is building an entire ecosystem of artificial connection. There are AI girlfriends, robots that take care of you, relatives who can come back from the afterlife, stuffed animals that talk to you, and all of this exists because there is a real and very big problem they are trying to solve. But perhaps the most important question is not whether this works, because clearly it works, at least in the short term. The question is, what happens to a society when it learns to prefer a robot over a real person? When loneliness becomes a problem you solve with a monthly subscription, what's left of real human bonds? I don't know the answer. And honestly, humanity has never had to question this before. Yes, the future seems quite complicated, and the results will show up at some point. Comment below what you think about all this. If you use any of these technologies, we will continue the conversation here in the comments. Thank you very much for following the recent videos here on the channel.